Buddy Valastro may be one of the best-known cake bakers on TV, but he's dealt with plenty of adversity throughout his rise to the top. From stress-induced panic attacks to nearly losing his hand, the cake boss is no stranger to hardship. One of the defining setbacks of Buddy Valastro's professional life occurred in September 2020. Around that time, the cake boss shared a photo of himself in a hospital bed with a heavily bandaged forearm. People then published a piece revealing that Valastro's hospital stay was the result of an injury he sustained in a freak accident in his home bowling alley. A representative for Valastro told People, "There was a malfunction with the bowling pin setter, a common fix in the past, but it turned into a terrible accident. After trying to release the bowling pin from the cage mechanism, his right hand became lodged and compressed inside the unit. The pin setter machine fully impaled his hand with a metal rod 3 times. He was only able to free himself once his teenage sons cut through that metal rod with an electric saw. Soon after a surgeon removed the rod from his hand, he had to undergo a second surgery. The cake boss could have lost the use of his hand entirely were it not for that surgery's success. While 2 surgeries in the immediate wake of his accident may have saved Valastro's ability to use his hand, they were merely the start of a long recovery. By the end of 2023, more than 3 years after the injury, the cake boss had undergone 5 hand surgeries in total. After those 5 surgeries, he estimated that he had regained 95% of his ability to move his hand. Even then, it took 1 more surgery to get him back to more or less full hand mobility. That said, Valastro returned to work before his hand was back at full function. In 2021, notably, he filmed Season 3 of Buddy vs. Duff, the cake-baking reality competition show he co-hosts with Charm City Cakes founder Duff Goldman.
My main goal was to be able to see if I could still make cakes to the level that I did. And the fact that I was able to do it was amazing.
The inciting incident behind Valastro's ascent in the culinary industry was having to help run his family's business, Carlo's Bakery, when he was just 17 years old. His father, Bartolo Valastro Sr., had owned the bakery since 1964, but his death in 1994 of lung cancer required surviving family members to step up in his place. Valastro Sr. grew up in Italy before moving to the United States when he was 13. He wound up working at Carlo's Bakery soon after arriving in the US and ended up purchasing the business after a number of years as an employee. Of course, Carlo's Bakery became foundational to the younger Buddy Valastro's success, so he has his dad to thank in part for his career. He wrote in an Instagram post commemorating his late father's birthday, "You're in my thoughts every day, and that's how it will always be. You're up in heaven now, but you'll always be with me." Understandably, running a bakery at just 17 years old in the immediate wake of his father's death wasn't easy for Valastro. Rising to that difficult task meant dropping out of high school so he could dedicate himself to Carlo's Bakery full-time. Valastro's father had him working at Carlo's Bakery when he was just 11. While at that point he was merely on cleaning duty, he started decorating cakes when he was still just 15 years old. 2 years later, Valastro's responsibilities multiplied once his father was no longer at the bakery's helm. He soon started working 18-hour days, 6 days a week, hence dropping out of high school to accommodate the workload. He told CNBC,
And I said, I don't care how hard I have to work. I'll be the first one in every morning, the last one to leave.
It took 3 years after he dropped out of high school to overcome various difficulties, such as competing bakeries and employees worried about losing their jobs, before he felt he had a handle on his new leadership position. Cake Boss fans are well aware of the impact Valastro's mother Mary had on the show during its early run. In an episode that first aired in July 2012, Valastro and his mother revealed her ALS diagnosis to the show's audience for the first time.
Finally, I went to the Mayo Clinic and they said it was ALS. So that was very devastating for me.
She eventually died of the illness in June of 2017. Valastro told People that the final 2 years of his mother's life were particularly difficult because of how severely ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, had altered her personality. He told the outlet, "It was a mixture of sadness and relief because she wasn't really living at the time. This disease is horrible and it takes a toll on you, and she wasn't that firecracker she always was. I don't want to remember how she was during the last 2 years of her life because that wasn't her." In commemoration of his mother and the sizable impact she had on the family business, Valastro temporarily closed every Carlo's Bakery location on June 27, 2017, before reopening them the next day. Valastro may have become accustomed to running Carlo's bakery around the time he was 20 years old, but that didn't mean the stress of his leadership position suddenly went away. When he was 27, Valastro experienced his first panic attack, and it was so severe he had to check himself into an emergency room. Most likely contributing to that panic attack was the fact that before he started filming Cake Boss, Valastro worked through weekends and holidays, and his workdays lasted considerably longer than 8 hours. Valastro publicly discusses his experience with panic attacks in episode 6 of his show Bakery Boss, a Cake Boss spin-off. In this episode, the owner of a bakery called Lydia's Bake Shop and Cafe experiences a panic attack while hurriedly trying to bake a batch of cupcakes. Valastro is able to empathize with her based on his personal experience. His hospitalization, of course, was well in his past by the time of this episode's filming, so he had developed personal strategies for mitigating his own stress, allowing him to guide Lydia through her on-camera struggles.